By the way, Jerry, I've had like at least 15 inquiries. Our team has had probably about 8 to 10 conversations, and we've gotten about 6 offers.
What would it need to be to get a deal done?
Welcome to part 4 in this video series where I'm going to show you how to wholesale a creative financing deal from start to finish in San Antonio, Texas. On the part 1 video, I showed how I negotiated and structured the deal live with the seller. On the part 2 video, I showed how I crunched the numbers and analyzed the deal using my creative financing calculator. In the part 3 video, I showed how to fill out the paperwork and secure the deal with the seller. And in this part 4 video, I'm going to show you how we found a buyer for the deal. Now, if you missed any of the previous videos, stop right now and go back and watch them and then come back to this video. I'll put the playlist link in the description box below this video for you. On this video, I'm going to show you how we found a buyer for our deal. Now be sure to stay to the end of this video because just like the previous videos, I'm going to share a live call so you can see what this looks like in the real world. But first, if you're new here, my name is Jerry Norton. I make millions of dollars a year wholesaling and flipping houses. And here on my YouTube channel, I show you how to do the same. So if you want to be a flipping genius like me and live your dream life, subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. In wholesale real estate, after you secure a contract with a seller, the next step is to find a buyer, or what we call dispositions, or dispo for short. Now, dispo is where the rubber meets the road. It's where you actually find out what the market thinks about your deal and if you actually have a deal that buyers will want. Now remember, this is a subject to deal that we're wholesaling, and when it comes to creative financing deals, there isn't just 1 or 2 things that make it a deal or not a deal. Unlike cash deals, investors usually buy creative deals for the terms of the deal, not for the price or for equity. That's certainly the case with this San Antonio deal. The price we're selling it for is actually more than the current market value. That means it's a negative equity deal, but we're still able to wholesale it. Why? Because the terms are attractive enough that a buyer still wants the deal. Now, isn't that crazy? This is why you have to learn how to wholesale creative. When it comes to the terms of a creative deal, there are actually 10 different things that buyers consider when deciding if it's a good deal. Some have more value, or what I call weight, than others, and some buyers put more emphasis on certain things than others. For example, one buyer may look at a low entry fee as their biggest priority, and for another buyer, the entry fee is less important and the interest rate is their biggest priority. Now, having said that, after wholesaling a lot of creative deals, there is a fairly consistent trend in what's most important for buyers and what they look for. And the best way to learn what buyers want is to actively do deals, but to also listen to your buyers and get feedback. Now, I'll show you what I mean with this San Antonio deal in a minute, but first, let me run through quickly the 10 things in a creative deal that buyers consider. First is the entry fee. Now, entry fee is the total amount of cash needed at closing to buy the deal. This includes closing fees and commissions if there are agents involved. It includes a down payment or cash to the seller, reinstatement fees if the seller is behind on their loan payments, and most importantly, it includes the assignment fee to the wholesaler if there's a wholesaler involved. Now, obviously, the lower the entry fee, the better. As a general rule of thumb, though, if the entry fee is under 10% of the total acquisition price, buyers will be very excited about your deal. Whereas if the entry fee is as high as 25%, it will be more challenging to dispo, and that was the biggest negative with my deal. If you remember, after paying $25,000 in arrears to the lender, giving the seller $30,000 in cash, closing fees, and a $15,000 assignment, the entry fee was over 20%, which ended up being the biggest setback to this deal. Now keep watching and I'll show you how we overcame that. The second biggest factor with creative is usually the cash flow, or better yet, the cash on cash return. Cash on cash return is measured by taking the net cash flow the property earns divided by the total entry fee. In other words, if I put, let's say, $50,000 in cash into acquiring a creative deal, how much is that $50,000 in cash earning annually from the cash flow generated from the property? Now, most investors want to earn a minimum of 10% cash on cash, but the higher the cash on cash return, the more attractive the deal. Now remember, to get a high cash on cash, you need either high cash flow or a really low entry fee, or perhaps both. So net income is one of those factors. Now another big factor is the interest rate. My San Antonio deal was at a 2.875 rate, which is phenomenal. The other factor that was a huge bonus was that I didn't have a balloon. Now, balloon simply means that the loan balance is due in full after a specified amount of time. In creative financing, it's common to see 5-year, 7-year, or 10-year balloons. A 5-year balloon means that in 5 years, the investor would have to refinance, sell, or pay off the loan balance owed on the loan. Since my deal did not have a balloon, a buyer could keep the property for the remainder of the 27 years left and never pay it off at a fixed 2.875 rate. That's a big deal for some investors. Now, other things that are considered are the depreciation write-off for taxes, the amortization or length of the loan, if and how much work is needed to fix it up, and the location. So what happened when we put our deal out to Dispo? Well, like I explained earlier, the market liked the interest rate. They liked that it didn't have a balloon. They didn't even mind the negative equity. The biggest issue was that dang entry fee at 20%. It was way too high given all the factors. Now, part of the issue was that the best exit for this deal was a wrap, not a short-term rental like I initially thought. The reason is that it didn't have a history of overnight rental, and there wasn't a clear proven model that it would do well on Airbnb or VRBO in that neighborhood, so it was too speculative. The feedback the market gave us was that this was a good wrap deal. A wrap is where the investor who buys this house, subject to, turns around and resells it to a retail buyer on seller financing at a higher price and a higher interest rate. It's called a wraparound because you take the new seller financing loan and you wrap it around the existing subject to loan. For example, let's say that an investor buys my Subto deal and then he resells it for, let's say, $400,000 with 10% down at 8% interest to a retail buyer who can afford the payments but can't qualify for a traditional loan. Now, if you want to learn more about how wraps work, I did a video where I broke down a deal that I bought subject to and then sold on a wrap. I'll put the link to that video in the description below and you can watch it later. Okay, so my deal just wasn't getting a lot of traction due to the high entry fee, so I decided to reach out to my buddy and pro wholesaler Aaron Bevins, who lives in San Antonio. I knew this was his backyard and I hoped he might have a buyer or at least give me some insight. Now, if you don't know Aaron, he's a stud and he wholesales a lot of deals. So big shout out to Aaron. You definitely should be following and learning from him. So Aaron told me that he had some serious wrap buyers and he'll put it in front of them and see what they think. And just like I suspected, he had a lot of interest, but the entry fee was the hang up. So I told Aaron, go back to your interested buyers and get your highest entry fee offer. The reason why is because if he could get a buyer on the hook, I would go back to the seller and renegotiate the $30,000 cash to that seller. But like I told Aaron, I didn't want to do that unless we for sure had a committed buyer. Take a listen to the call I did with Aaron where we discussed the market feedback and the next steps, and then I'll come back and explain how we handled it.
Hey, I know you're busy. I just wanted to give you a quick call about this Lindenwood Run, this Subto deal.
Yeah, talk to me.
What do you think's the issue? The $30,000 cash to seller is pretty steep considering 25 in arrears. Is that the hang up you're seeing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm getting an interest in this deal, which tells me like, hey, for all intents and purposes, it's looking sexy. But once they get to that down payment thing, they're like, yeah, I mean, that entry fee is just... By the way, Jerry, I've had like at least 15 inquiries. Our team has had probably about 8 to 10 conversations, and we've gotten about 6 offers. And every single one of them, each 6 of them was like, hey, I love this deal, but that entry fee is killing it for me.
What would it need to be to get a deal done?
I can find out what that number is right now. I just wanted to give you that update yesterday. I can find that out right now, and within the next hour to 2, I could probably have an update in terms of where we would need to be in order for this to move off the shelf like this week or early next week latest.
You tell me where it needs to be. I'm looking over everything and it looks like everything else seems to be okay. The only other issue would be when you add on that solar second loan, it puts you in an upside down equity. But I mean, that's pretty common with some of these Subto deals. I mean, you're definitely not buying it for equity. You're buying it for everything else. So
nobody's complained about that.
Okay. Okay, good.
Yeah.
What's their exit they're looking at? Are these wrap buyers or they want to Airbnb it or what are they thinking?
Wrap buyers for
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, this is a wrap deal for sure. Yeah, I mean, if you bring a buyer, we'll JV on it.
I'll have my Dispo do this. All the people who have expressed interest, hey, where do you need to be in order for this to be a deal? And then we'll kind of scratch and claw from there. We'll bring back our best offers to you, and then let me know if we can reverse our way into this deal.
I mean, really, it sounds like there's nothing we can do about the arrears, the second, the closing fees. I mean, the assignment's about as low as we want to go there.
Yeah.
So really, it's just that $30,000 cash to seller to play with.
Yep.
So, if 20 gets it done or whatever gets it done, 15, I don't know. But what I don't want to do, and this is, I've got a good relationship with the seller. I got one shot, right? Like if I go to him and I'm like, hey, we can move forward, but we got to bring this cash to you down. I want to know that if he does that I'm not going to be coming back again, you know.
We'll make sure that these offers are like, hey, if we came back and got you this number, are we ready with non-refundable EMD?
Perfect.
To move forward? The cool thing is that these types of buyers are in our VIP who buy this way. So these are individuals who I've already done business with, and I know them either personally or pretty close in terms of having them vetted out. So
good.
Yeah, if they come back with a number, I will ensure that they have EMD, and we can go back to our seller with certain.
Great. Sounds good, Aaron. Appreciate you.
Okay, so a lot of interest, entry fee too high, and I told Aaron to find his highest paying buyer. And what ended up happening is Aaron found a buyer who was ready to commit. He could close quickly, put down non-refundable earnest money, and sign a contract, but the most he would pay in an entry fee was $45,000 or about 14%. So let's look at the numbers. If we pay $25,000 in arrears, $3,000 in closing fees, we drop the wholesale fee to $12,000, that only leaves $5,000 left to go to the seller. So I called the seller and I told him, during our due diligence, our investors came back and the most they're willing to pay is $45,000 total, which means after paying all the fees, there's only enough for you to get $5,000 at closing, which he said he was unwilling to accept at that point, and that he would contact his other interested buyers to see if they would pay more. And this is where we had a turn of events in everyone's favor. Remember from the first video that he was hoping to get a loan modification and keep his property. Well, the next day he called me to inform me that his loan mod was approved in the form of forgiveness. That means his $25,000 in arrears was eliminated. And I had him verify that it wasn't added to the principal like a typical modification, and he confirmed that it wasn't. I'd never heard of that, so I asked him, does this mean you want to keep your property? Because you totally can, that's what we agreed to. He told me he'd think about it and then called me back the next day to let me know he wanted to still move forward. Now, if you take a look, without the $25,000 in arrears anymore, now the deal pencils exactly how we hoped. $30,000 cash to the seller, $3,000 in closing fees, and $12,000 in wholesale fee for a total of $45,000 in entry fee, which again is exactly what Aaron's buyer was willing to pay. So we did a simple amendment to the contract with the seller at the new terms. I signed a JV agreement with Aaron that we'd split the wholesale fee, and we locked up his buyer on an assignment, and we're scheduled to close this week. Aaron, you are a flipping genius. That means I'll make $6,000 and Aaron will make $6,000, which by the way is a tiny deal for us. We typically close deals 5 times that size, but a deal is a deal. And for me, it was a huge win because we helped the seller. We got a great deal for a wrap investor. I did a deal with my friend Aaron, which now strengthens our relationship. And I did a 4-part video series to show you the entire process. Now, maybe I'll do another video in this series, maybe one with Aaron, who knows. Now, to help you get better at wholesaling creative, be sure to get my creative financing guide and my creative wholesaling calculator. I'll get them both to you for free, links in the description below. Finally, getting good at creative is all about getting comfortable structuring deals. So watch this next video where I show another creative deal breakdown where you can see exactly how we structured the deal for like a $30,000 assignment. So watch that now, and never forget, it's not about the money, it's about having the time and freedom to be, do, have, and give everything God has in store for you. That's what it's really all about, and I'll see you on the next video.